All right, we'll break out a Bible today. We always need a Bible here at Impact. If you don't have one, there should be one in front of you in one of the seats, a little basket underneath there. This is one of those times of year I really like this time of year. Obviously, this weather is awesome. Raise your hand if you're a fall person, if you like the autumn leaves and most people, okay. If you don't, that's all right. We still love you. I know a lot of people kind of get disappointed when summer's over. Tricia kind of goes into a deep, dark depression because she's an assistant principal. I want to say school teacher because she was a school teacher for so long. But she's in public school, so when summer starts back, she has to go back to school. And so there's this deep cloud of depression that hangs over the house. You know, late July and August starts to loom, you know. But this type of weather, I love this type of weather. We're real big on fall and all the things that go with it and the lead up into Christmas and all that. So it's a fun time at our house. One of the things that we've always done through the years is we have always got season passes to Tweetsie Railroad. Now, if you think we were being nice for our little kids, we actually were doing this before we had any kids. We just, you know, we're kids at heart, and we've always liked going up to Tweetsie. So even before Noah, who was, is he 18? 19? How old is he? Is he 19? 18, okay. I'm telling you what, you blink and you don't, it's crazy. This is off topic, but I was telling somebody the other day, they've got a senior in high school, and of course, most of y'all know we've got Noah who just started his freshman year at Liberty, and this other guy was telling me, he said, man, I messed up last night. I sent my wife a picture. You know how Facebook will have your memories 6 years ago or whatever, you know? Well, it was a picture of his two boys when they were like 6 and 4, you know, whatever. And he sent this picture to his wife, and she called him and she was crying. She said, don't you ever do that again. I can't stand it. He's going to be graduating from high school. They got matching lunch boxes, you know, and she's crying about everything. And I said, dude, Tricia put together a video when Noah graduated. And there's one little segment in it that's called Birthdays at the Fire Hydrant. And every year she would have the kids go out and take a picture in front of the fire hydrant that's at the corner of our house. And you know, the first year there was no house because we just bought the lot. And so Noah's like 2 and he's in front of this fire hydrant, and then there's a house that's being built in the next picture, and then there's a house that's finished, but there's no shrubbery, no trees, and then there's a tree behind him, and then the tree's, you know, this big, and then boom, it's this big. And I told the guy, I said, in 30 seconds, I saw 16 years of Noah's life. And that's how it feels sometimes, you know, it's just poof, it's gone. So we were at Liberty last night, and we were enjoying the cold, cooler weather, and everybody's got on sweatshirts and everything. And I was sitting there waxing nostalgic about the greatness of fall and memories through the years and stuff. And we've always bought Tweetsie tickets. Now, Tweetsie does a thing called Ghost Train. And you know, as a pastor and as a Christian, you're always faced with the dilemma of, I love pumpkins, I love fall, the candy corn type of atmosphere, but you don't want to celebrate the devil, demons, and witchcraft and all that stuff. And so you have churches that draw a line in the sand and they say, we're doing nothing Halloween whatsoever. And that's fine, I don't have a problem with that at all. And then you have people that say, well, we're going to do a trunk or treat, but it's going to be like a Halloween alternative, which is what we do. My thing is, and look, I'm not dogmatic about this, I'm not going to get in a fist fight with anybody about this. If you think your family should absolutely positively have nothing to do with any fall festival whatsoever or anything like that, that's fine, all right? But if I think back to when I was at a very staunch, fundamental Baptist church growing up, and they had a basketball team that would travel around and they'd go to Atlanta and play tournaments and stuff, very serious about basketball, and which I thought was awesome. And so I'm on this Greyhound bus that our church has rented, and we're driving down to Atlanta, Georgia for this tournament. Now, I was like 12, and the tournament was high school players. You had to be a high schooler to play in the tournament. So I couldn't even play, I was just going to watch. But I knew that the hotel we were at had a swimming pool, and it's summertime. So I'm thinking all the way down to Atlanta, I can't wait to get in that swimming pool. You know, I'm 12 years old, you're going to a hotel with a pool, that's all you're thinking about. So we pull up on the Greyhound, and you know, it's 950,000 degrees in Atlanta, Georgia in August, and the pastor stands up with a double-breasted suit and the tie on and his button all the way up to the top, you know, and he says, boys, go to your room, close the blinds, girls are going to swim from 6 to 7. And girls, you go to your room, close the blinds, and the boys can go out from 7 to 8. And I looked at my friend who was 12 also that was going down with me, and I said, and nobody else was laughing. And I said, he's not kidding, is he? He said, no, we can't see each other in bathing suits. And I said, do y'all go to the beach? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, what do? Stick your head in the sand? So the reality is, everybody that you know, 99% of them, they're going to be involved in some sort of Halloween something. They're going to take their kids trick-or-treating, or they're going to go to some kind of festival or something, right? It's going to be on TV, it's everywhere. So as the church, I think it's our job not to say, y'all are a bunch of idiots, you're going to die and go to hell. I think it's our job to say, look, there's some good that can come out of all of this stuff, but it's not the demons and the witchcraft and all that, and the ghosts and all that. It's, we can have a good time at church, and we don't have to have demons and witchcraft and scary costumes and that kind of stuff. We can remind people that the reason for the 4 seasons is God. And the fall of the leaves and the dying and the death of everything represents Jesus dying. And when everything comes back to life in the spring, that's Jesus coming back. It's all about Him. Even fall. So fall is not something to hate, it's something to embrace. Alright, so I'm off my soapbox, but we are going to talk about why you are so scared. This is the time of year where, and I'll admit, look, I like scary movies. Alright, now I don't sit and watch them all the time, but it's very tempting for me. Look, y'all know me. I'm not going to pretend. I'm transparent. I'm not some super Christian. I'm just like you. And it's tempting for me when my teenage daughter says, Dad, let's go see that new scary movie. And I'm like, we probably shouldn't, And I have to talk my teenage daughter out of it. But in the background, I'm thinking, that would be pretty good. Probably would be. And I like the movies where somebody jumps. Now look, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre where there's just blood everywhere and all that kind of stuff, I don't like that. That doesn't do anything for me. But those movies where, you're kind of on the edge of your seat and you're waiting for somebody to jump out behind the next, door or whatever, I like that. And so as a Christian, as a pastor, I have to struggle with that, and I have to make sure I handle those things the correct way. Allie had a group of friends one time that were going to go to one of the Spooky Wood things, whatever it was, Kirsty Valley or whatever. And she said, Dad, a group of us are going to the Haunted Trail. And I said, well, who's taking y'all? And she said, we don't know, we don't have an adult yet. And I said, well, you can't go. I don't even know who's going to be with you. I don't know what adult there's going to be. You can't go. So she comes back to me, she says, here's the people that's going, and they were all good kids. And we'd grown up with them. And she said, but we need a parent to go with us. And I said, well, who's going? And she said, we don't have a parent to go with us. And so now the pastor has to decide if he's going to go with a group of kids to Spooky Woods, all right? Now look, again, these are tough situations, and I'm like you. I face these kind of things all the time, and I have to decide what to do and what not to do. So I want to talk to you today about why we're scared, what scares us, and whether that's a good or bad thing. God bless you, all right? So turn to the book of Job. Now, normally, if you talk about being scared in Job, you would think about, well, Job's scared because he's about to die and he's lost everything he has, but it's kind of a different animal here for Job. If you're familiar with the book of Job, and we're going to be in verse 4, Job, just a quick synopsis here. God tells Satan, he says, have you considered my servant Job? He's righteous, he's perfect, he's righteous in what he does. And so the devil says, look, if you'll let me go take everything away from him, because he's a rich dude, he'll curse you and die. And that happens, but he doesn't curse God to die. And then God says, see, I told you. And Satan says, yeah, but if you would let me go and strike his health, then he would rebel. And again, God says, okay, you can do it, but you can't kill him. And as you know, all the terrible bad things happen to Job, but he still doesn't curse God and die. And then if you pick up in chapter 3, it says Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. So he doesn't curse God, he curses his own life. But then in chapter 4, I want to pick up in verse 12. At this point, Job is going through about as bad as you can go through. Anytime something horrible goes on in your life and you're struggling, somebody always says, well, remember Job, and they try to compare it to Job. You don't have it as bad as Job had it, which doesn't make you feel any better whatsoever, but that's what everybody says. So Job was kind of in the same situation. He was surrounded by these friends that thought they knew it all. and thought they could just say the right words and magically make everything feel better. So all the friends are trying one at a time. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Trying to make Job feel better. And one of Job's friends was trying to make him feel better. And in doing so, he says in chapter 4, verse 12, a word was secretly brought to me. This is one of his friends talking to him. My ears caught a whisper amid disquieting dreams in the night when deep sleep falls on men. Fear and trembling seized me and made all of my bones shake. A spirit glided past my face and the hair on my body stood on end. Have you ever had the hair on your body stand on end? So here is, again, we're no different than anybody that's ever lived before, okay? Here's all the way back in the time of Job. Here's a dude saying, I had this vision and I saw a ghost, a spirit, and it glided past my face. And man, it scared me so bad. My knees were shaking and my hair stood up on the back of my neck and on my arms. I got goosebumps. And we've all experienced that before, right? I love to tell the story of the scariest I have ever seen, the most fear I've ever seen Trisha exhibit. We were in high school. We're still in high school? I guess we were, because you haven't been to a haunted house since high school. I like that kind of stuff, as I said, and I have tried to stay away from it so that I don't promote it. But Trisha hates it. All right, she hates anything scary. She's the person that says, why would you buy a movie ticket for someone to scare you? Why would you go into a haunted house for someone to scare you and pay them money to do it, right? She is also the type of person that first thing in the morning, a lot of times I hear her go, ah! And I go run into the bathroom. She says, a spider! Or if she's in the shower and you come into the bathroom and you knock on the shower door, hey! She goes, ah! And the shampoo goes flying out. She's like living on the edge, So she does not want to be at a haunted house, all right? You can scare her by walking into the bathroom. She definitely doesn't need to be at Spooky Woods or whatever. So when we were in high school, we were at one of those places. And it was one where you went into a house first before you went out into the trail. And we went in the house, and her biggest thing is the chainsaws. She says, I hope they don't have chainsaws. I hope they don't have chainsaws. And so we're standing in this room, and it's the last room you're in before you go out the back door there, and you get on the trail. And we're in this back room, and one of the characters or actors or whatever they are walks up beside of Trisha and says, hey, Trisha. And, this person's in full costume. And Trisha starts inching closer to me, and she's going, he said my name. He says my name. He knows my name. He knows my name. And I said, Trisha, relax. They probably know you, or they heard one of us say your name. It's no big deal. And as soon as I thought I had calmed her down, we heard the chainsaw ring. Well, she gazelles out the back door. There was like 3 or 4 steps there. She clears those steps. I went running out after her, and it was like, down the steps. She cleared all these steps. She's like halfway out in the yard, and she's, they got a chainsaw, they got a chainsaw. So when I think about those places, I think about the scariest she's ever been. And every year I kid her and I say, we're going to Spooky Woods this year? And she says, no, we're not going to Spooky Woods this year. So this guy in Job says, look, the hair stood up on and I was shaking at my knees, and you've all experienced that before, okay? Some of the scary movies that we see are just plain silly, aren't they? Right? I mean, you can sit there and go, that wasn't scary. That was stupid. But some of the movies that we see, and what we call scary movies, are actually scary. Why is that? Why can we watch one movie and say, well, that was dumb, that was silly. And then we can watch another movie and say, whoa, I don't know about tonight. I don't know if I can sleep tonight. When you were a little kid and you got scared and you slept with your parents. And our kids, when they saw scary movies or something would scare them, they'd want to sleep with us and that kind of stuff. You know how, and look, guys do this. We might not admit it, but we do this too. We see something scary or experience something scary, and then that night, if we're walking in the dark somewhere, we're like, and we want to act like we're all tough and everything, but the reality is we're like checking around the corner. We might just walk down the hall, no big deal. We're like, and then we go and do what we got to do. But it gets to us too. It messes with our psyche. And the reason why is because when we see something that's believable, something that could really happen. The original Exorcist movie was really, really scary. It was based on a true story. We know that people can get demon-possessed. And so when we see that, and we see that up on the screen and the visualization of the demonic takeover, it scares us. You know, the original Poltergeist movie, and I'm dating myself with some of this stuff right here. But that, if you've seen that, that's a scary movie. It's based on a true story. Many of the actors that were in the original Poltergeist movie died under mysterious things. You know, one guy was on a movie set and a big heavy weight fell down. You know how like they have the heavy weight so they can raise curtains and lower them? One of the weights fell on his head and crushed him. I mean, and that was just one of many. The little girl that was the star in it, she died at an early age, not long after that movie. There's a lot of weird satanic, demonic things that went on even post time of that movie. And what happens is we see something that's real, and we know it can be real, and we know it really happens or it really could happen, and that scares us. And then we leave that theater or we leave the movie, whatever, and we're in that grip of fear. And it stays with us. And I'm going to tell you, the most fun I've ever had is I saw a scary movie, this was years ago. Let me back up a little bit. Tricia, what movie did we see? There was a ladies group there from a black church. They were all black ladies with their hats. And it's a Christian movie based on a true story. The Case for Christ. You know what I'm talking about? Anybody? There's a book that's been out for a long time called The Case for Christ. And it's about this guy that didn't believe that Jesus was real, and his wife got saved. And he was a reporter in Chicago, I think. And so he said, was it Chicago? Okay. And he set out and he said, I'm going to prove that this Jesus thing is a bunch of baloney. And the more he researched it and used all the techniques that he would do to research any other story, the more he realized Jesus was legit. And he was who he says he is. And he got saved. So they did a movie called The Case for Christ. Well, when we went to see this movie, there was a group of about 20 black ladies there that were from, you know, the local black church, you know, the Baptist black church, where they really get into it and they get excited. And that's what was happening in this movie. You know, the girl would start witnessing, and all these ladies in front of us would be like, you tell them! Praise Jesus! You tell them about it, you know. Well, I was in a theater one time with this same group, basically, but it was a scary movie. And I was very young. I don't know why I was even in a scary movie. I was probably too young to be in there. But there was this group of black ladies in front of me, and every time the girl would walk into a room, you know, they'd be like, "Oh, girl, don't you do it? Don't go in there." And you know, the people in the movies are always stupid, right? Like, why would you look behind the curtain, right? Just go outside and dial 911, you know? Of course, this was back before you could take your phone outside, but go in the kitchen and dial 911, you know? But whatever, they're pulling back a door, and every time they pull something back, before she would do it, you know, the ladies in the front row go, "Don't do it, girl! Run outside! Don't do it!" And then they pull it back, and they all jump, woo! You know, and there's nothing there, and I'm jumping and throwing popcorn, and there's nothing there. It was probably the two most fun times I've ever had in a movie was Case for Christ. You know, I felt like I was at a Christian concert when that was over, because they were like, "Yeah, praise the Lord!" And then with the scary movie, I mean, I was sweating. You know, it was an activity to go see that movie. But it's legit, and that's what scares us. All right, let's look at this next slide. We get scared because it's legit. Let's look at 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy, and we're in chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. And it says, "For this reason I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of hands." And then it says something that we say all the time, but we kind of don't use it. "For God did not give us a spirit of timidity or of fear, but a spirit of power, of love, and self-discipline." So we run around all the time and we say, well, you don't have the spirit of fear, don't live in fear. But what happens is, we start dwelling in the things around us that scare us and create fear. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about seeing a scary movie now or going to a haunted trail or anything like that. I'm talking about every one of you have something in your life that scares you. There's things that you worry about. There are things that you have fears about. And those things, when we dwell in them, it's just like going to see the scary movie, right? If you don't go see a scary movie all of October, you're not going to go to your car looking around under the bumper and under the car, scared that something's going to pop out. But if you go see a movie that truly scares you, For the next day or two, you're going to walk around kind of checking around every corner. If you live in fear of the things in your life, then you're going to walk that way in your life. I don't know, I'm scared this scares me, I'm worried, I'm fearsome, I don't know. And you start to live in a spirit of fear just like you're surrounded by a scary movie. Nolan asked me, my 6-year-old, he asked me a couple weeks ago, he said, "Dad, what's the scariest you've ever been?" And I thought, that's a good question. I had to think about it for a while. And I remembered when I was in 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, y'all probably remember when Salem's Lot came out. The original Salem's Lot, the movie about the vampires. And this was back when you got 3 channels. You got ABC, NBC, and CBS. Unless you had UHF, you could get the channel 45 and 48. But if a big movie was coming on a Friday or Saturday night, everybody knew about it, right? Because they would advertise it all week long. This week on CBS, Saturday night. So they advertised Salem's Lot for weeks. It was pumped up like this big to-do. It was going to be on TV, which normally something like this you'd have to go to the theater and see. And so Salem's Lot comes on, and I'm way too young to be watching it, but I'm watching it, and it's about these scary vampires. But because it's on regular TV, there's commercials. And so every commercial, our doorbell would ring. And this is when we lived at the apartments in High Point, if you remember, Jason. And we lived across the hall at the apartments from our grandparents. And the doorbell would ring every commercial. And Mom would say, "Go see who's at the door." Well, we had a little hole, to look through, and I knew not to just open up the door. So I would look. Nobody's there. I'd go back, nobody's there. Commercial ends, show comes back on. By about the 4th or 5th commercial break, I was pretty scared, And Mom would say, "Go see who's at the door." By the 4th or 5th commercial break, I didn't want to go to the door. So I was going to the door like this. Peeking up at the hole, couldn't hardly get to it. Look at the hole. Nobody there. I'd go back and say, nobody's there. Well, finally the doorbell rings, and she says, "Run over there real fast and see if you can catch them." Because, she figures somebody's ringing the doorbell and running. So I run to the door, and I sling it open, and, I'm looking as you would at eye level, and there's nothing there. And then I hear something growl, and I look down, and my grandfather, of course I didn't know it was my grandfather at the time, but there's this dude on all fours coming around the corner growling in a scary mask. Well, I peed my pajamas right there. Ran down the hallway screaming, "Ah!" I'm out in 2nd, 3rd grade, So my mom comes and looks, and she sees it's her dad on all fours with some scary Halloween mask on. And she just starts dying laughing. Well, I'm still in cardiac arrest. I don't think any of it's funny. My Superman pajamas have got pee in them. They're my favorite pajamas. And I'm like, and he took his mask off, and he thought that was the funniest thing that ever happened, right? And so when Nolan said, "What's the scariest you've ever been?" I wet my pants. All right, that's pretty scary. All right, I don't care if you are a little kid. That's a lot of trauma right there. All right, I remember it. I remember like it happened yesterday. I remember what it feels like to be in wet Superman pajamas. All right. Hey, I had Captain America socks that would come up to your knees, and I had on Superman pajamas over them. My socks got wet. All right. I didn't tinkle. I peed in my pants. All right. I was so scared. You hear that expression? But I was so scared I wet my pants. I literally wet my pants. And so when he said, "What's the scariest you ever been?" I told him that story. And I remember it like it was yesterday. But what built up to that fear? If I would have just been sitting there watching, cartoons one day, and he would have done that, I probably would have went, "Oh!" and it would have scared me, but I probably wouldn't have wet my pants and went running down the hallway. But I had been immersed in a spirit and a livelihood of fear. And it just built up and stacked up. So when that big moment came, I wet my pants. And that's what happens in our life is we just surround ourselves with things that scare us and worry us, and we fear it. And we live in that, and it builds and builds and builds. And then when our big moment comes and it's our chance to live in the Spirit of God, we wet our pants. And we're like, "Well, I messed up that time. I wet my pants. My bad." Instead of doing what it says right here, living in a spirit that is full of power and love and self-discipline. Let's look at the last thing here.
Sorry, good.
And look, I'm telling you, we should be walking around like Chuck Norris because that's the devil. His kung fu is weak, all right? I was looking on YouTube for some kung fu clips. And I used to like the 80s movies where kung fu, and they talk like that, you know? I used to love that stuff. And I was looking for some of those because everybody says your kung fu is weak. And I was like, where did that come from? Is there a movie where somebody actually says that? So I was trying to find that. And I found this clip that's like 15 minutes long where this guy that you just saw, there's like 10 guys. And they're coming in and they're trying to audition for a spot in a movie. And they're supposed to get in front of the screen and they're supposed to do their kung fu and give a line. And I mean, some of it's hilarious, you know. Some guy tries to kick a dummy and slips and falls. But this guy was the best to me because he looks the part, right? When he comes out there, he's big. He's got the big 1970s into early 80s kung fu afro, you know. He's got his nunchucks. He's got on the wardrobe. If you saw him standing there after, you know, you saw a movie and he was standing there at your car, you'd be like, oh, this is not good. And he looks the part. He looks scary. But then he starts doing his backflip and knocks himself out. And you can't hear the audio here, but when he stands up and he's still trying to do his little nunchucks, he tries to stand back up and you can hear somebody in the background saying, just stay down, we'll get you some help, you know? And so a lot of times we build Satan and fear up in our lives like this dude just standing there, insurmountable, awesome kung fu with his nunchucks. But the reality is, if God takes him on, he's going to backflip, hit his face, and be like this with his nunchucks. And that's what God is telling us. We live in a spirit of fear so many times when we should be living in a spirit of power. You should be walking around like Chuck Norris, checking out this guy going, you know what, Satan? Your kung fu is weak. Look at this last verse here. 1 John chapter 4. And again, there's so many verses that we read or we talk about or we quote. And sometimes it goes in one ear and out the other. 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. And I think this is another one of those. You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. We say that all the time. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. We quote that all the time. But if you'll back up one verse, it talks about there is a spirit of Antichrist in the world already. But then it goes on to say, if you back up in verse 3, it says, but every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus Christ is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming, and even now is already in the world. And then comes the famous scripture that we quote all the time. You are dear children of the child. You are a child of God. You have overcome them. What's them? The spirit of Antichrist, these evil spirits, because the one who is in you is greater than he that is in the world. So this verse is not just Jesus is in me, so I'm greater than he. This spirit is about, there is a spirit of fear, of Antichrist, of denying the Son of God. There is an Antichrist spirit out there. And it's happening every day. But you have Jesus Christ in you. So you should be walking up to this dude going, I'm about to judo kick you. I'm going to drop kick the fear with the judo drop kick. But instead we live like we've watched the scary movie all night long and we're scared to go to the bathroom. Right? I know you've seen a scary movie before and you've been afraid to go to the front door and answer it when somebody knocks on it. I would recommend that you not do that during a scary movie. Just, let them leave a message or something or a little note at the door. Alright? They're going to come up and play the last song. And as they do, I want to challenge you with this. If you have something in your life right now that you're scared of, that is causing fear, that is causing worry, I'm going to ask you to get up, walk up here to one of these altars, and give it to God. I want you to just judo drop kick it right back to Jesus. And say, you know what? It's been holding me down. I've been living in fear. I've been worried about this. I've been concerned about this. But it's time that I judo drop kick that fear out of here. Because I have been created to live in a spirit of power and a spirit of love and a spirit of self-discipline and not in a spirit of fear. Let's pray. Lord, if there's somebody in here right now that's not a Christian, we would just pray that they would say, Lord, come into my heart and save me. If there's a Christian in here, Lord, that's been dealing with fear and worry, and I know there's a lot of Christians in here that do that, Lord, that they would just cry out to you right now and say, Lord, I'm going to judo drop kick this thing right back to you. I'm not going to let it control me anymore. And I turn the fear and the worry and the concern over to you, because you are greater than all these things. You are greater than the spirit of fear. You are greater than the spirit of Antichrist, and you can handle it. The devil's kung fu is weak, Lord, and I want you to drop kick it for me. And we ask all these things in your name, Lord Jesus. Amen. Hey, this is Pastor Duncan Davis at Impact Church. Thank you for listening today. We hope and pray that today's message has impacted your life for Christ. We pray that you'll impact others' lives for Christ. Come and fellowship with us at Impact Church on Sunday mornings at 10:30. Have a great day, and God bless you.